Have you ever looked at a beautifully designed website and thought to yourself, man, how is this actually built behind the scenes? Well, today we are going to completely demystify that for you. Welcome to this comprehensive explainer where we're going to unlock the secrets of HTML, literally the foundational skeleton of the entire internet. Every single thing you see online, from some tiny personal blog to massive global platforms, is built on these exact same foundational concepts. By the end of our time together, you won't just understand how the web works, you'll have the exact blueprint you need to start building it yourself. So here's our blueprint for today's explainer. We're going to breeze through 6 main areas. First up, HTML basics and structure. Then text formatting and semantics. After that, we'll hit links, images, and media. Moving on to organizing with lists and tables, then interactive forms and inputs, and finally wrapping up with modern semantic HTML5. Let's just jump right in. Section 1, HTML basics and structure. We're starting with the absolute basics here, figuring out what HTML actually is and building our very first document from total scratch. Now, a super common misconception is that HTML is a programming language. Let me clear that up right now. It is absolutely not. It's a markup language. I want you to remember this crucial metaphor. HTML is the skeleton. It provides the bare structure and tells your browser, hey, this is a heading and this over here is a paragraph. Without it, you just have a shapeless blob on the screen. CSS, on the other hand, acts like the clothes, the styling, the colors, and JavaScript is the muscles, adding all that logic and movement. But obviously, you can't wear clothes or flex muscles without a solid skeleton first, right? So how exactly do we build this skeleton? Well, to build our very first page, we follow a few sequential steps. First, we declare the document type using that bracket doctype HTML bracket tag. This basically yells at the browser to use modern HTML5 standards. Next up, we wrap the whole thing in the HTML root tag. You can even give it attributes like language and reading direction, for example, setting it up for Persian with lang equals fa and dir equals RTL. Inside that root, we have 2 main zones. Think of the head tag as the invisible brain working behind the scenes. It holds the meta tags and the page title. Then you've got the body. This is the visible stage. If you want a user to actually see something on their screen, no exceptions, it must go inside the body tag. Moving on to section 2, text formatting and semantics. Now that our skeleton is standing up and we understand the basic document structure, it's time to add a little flesh and meaning to our page using text formatting. You've got to keep these golden rules in mind when formatting text. Rule number 1, you should only ever have one H1 tag per page. Think of it as the unique ID card or the absolute main title of that specific page. Second, always respect the heading hierarchy. Don't just jump from an H2 down to an H4 just because you want the text to look smaller. Next up, always choose semantic tags over presentational ones. For instance, using a strong tag tells Google and screen readers, hey, this text is highly important, whereas a B tag merely makes it visually bold without adding any actual meaning. Semantic tags explain the why. Oh, and for simple layout tweaks, you can use empty tags, tags that don't need closing, like bra for a quick line break or HR to draw a horizontal thematic divider. Think of this next part as your essential code dictionary for text elements. You've got your headings from 1 down to 6, and your standard P tag for paragraphs. If you were building, say, a Persian site, you'd wrap your main title exactly like this, with the H1 tags around the text for your main title. But look at the real semantic power we have here. The mark tag acts literally like a bright yellow highlighter pen for crucial text. The del tag visually strikes through deleted text, which is absolutely perfect for showing an old price next to a new one on an e-commerce site. And you can even easily handle scientific formulas, like H2O, using the sub and subtags for subscript and superscript. So here's the thing. Tags alone aren't always enough. Sometimes they need extra details. That's where attributes come in. Attributes give our tags special powers. They are always written inside the opening tag, formatted as a name, an equal sign, and a value inside quotes. The 2 most crucial ones you'll use constantly are ID and class. It is absolutely vital to remember that an ID is completely unique on a page, exactly like a national ID card. A class, however, is more like a family name. It groups multiple similar elements together so you can style them all at once with CSS. All right, section 3, links, images, and media. Let's connect our isolated little HTML island to the rest of the web and make it visually appealing with some media. Links and images are pretty much the lifeblood of the web, right? Links are built with the A tag, the anchor tag, and they act as bridges using the href attribute to tell the browser exactly where to go. You can drop in a target=_blank attribute to open that link in a brand new tab, or even trigger emails or phone calls using mail to and tell protocols. Images, on the other hand, use the img tag. Now notice something special here. This is an empty tag. It doesn't have a closing tag because it doesn't wrap around any text. It simply embeds an asset using the src attribute for the source path. And guys, never ever forget the alt attribute. Providing alternative text describing the image is a strict requirement for web accessibility and for your search engine optimization. Section 4. Organizing, lists, and tables. When you have a ton of data, just throwing it onto the screen is a complete mess. We need proper structure to make it readable. HTML gives us 3 distinct types of lists to wrangle our data. First, unordered lists. These are your standard bullet points, perfect for things like a grocery list, where the order doesn't really matter. Then you have ordered lists, which automatically number your items. This is ideal for step-by-step recipes or tutorials where sequence is everything. But the real pro-level tool is the description list. It pairs a specific term with a definition, making it the absolute best choice for glossaries, FAQs, or listing out the technical specs of a new gadget. Now, building advanced tables isn't just about drawing a visual grid on the screen. It requires a very specific hierarchy of tags to ensure screen readers and search engines perfectly understand your data. Everything lives inside the main table container tag. Immediately inside that, you drop a caption tag for the official title. It has to be the first child. Then we logically divide the content into a theed, t-body, and t-foot for the header, body, and footer. Inside those sections, we create rows with the tr tag, and we fill those rows with either header cells using th, which are bold and centered by default, or standard data cells using td. You can even merge cells together horizontally or vertically using colspan and rowspan, just like you would in a spreadsheet application. Moving on to Section 5, Interactive Forms and Inputs. The web is totally a two-way street. It's not just about showing data to users. Let's learn how to actually gather information from them. Every single form needs an action attribute to tell it where to send the data, and a method attribute to tell it how to send it. This is incredibly important for security, so listen up. Think of the GET method like a postcard. The data you send is visible right there in the URL for anyone to see. It's totally fine for a simple search bar, but for anything else, you want to use POST. POST is like a sealed letter, where the data is hidden safely inside the HTTP request body. It is absolutely mandatory to use POST for passwords and sensitive user data. No exceptions. The input tag is basically our ultimate Swiss Army knife. By simply changing the type attribute, you transform it into completely different interactive tools. Want a standard single-line text box? Just set the type to text. Need to hide a password so it shows up as little dots? Set the type to password. You can even force the browser to validate email formats by setting it to email. For multiple choice situations, keep in mind that radio buttons force the user to make a single choice. Just make sure they share the same name attribute, while checkboxes allow users to select as many options as they want. To make your forms truly professional and accessible, you have to utilize a few essential attributes. The name attribute is critical. Without it, giving the data an identity, the server just ignores the input entirely. You can guide your users with a placeholder attribute, which is that temporary hint text that magically disappears when they start typing. And you can enforce completion using the required Boolean attribute. It stops the form from submitting if it's left empty. Also, please always pair your inputs with a label tag. By linking a label's for attribute to an input's ID, you not only help visually impaired users, but you actually expand the clickable area on the screen. That is a game changer for mobile users trying to tap tiny checkboxes. Oh, and if you need multi-line text, use a text area. And for drop-down menus, pair the select and option tags. Now, when forms get overwhelmingly long, they become a total nightmare for users. But you can fix this by logically grouping fields together. Try wrapping related fields, like say a personal information section, inside a field set tag. This visually and logically groups them. Then, drop a legend tag in as the very first child to give that specific group a clear title. And if you have a massive drop-down menu with tons of options, use the opt group tag with a label attribute to categorize those options. It instantly improves the user experience and makes your page look incredibly organized. All right, final section, 6, Modern Semantic HTML5. Let's upgrade our codebase from the messy habits of the past to the modern, meaningful standards of HTML5. In the old days, developers suffered from a terrible condition we call div soup. Every single part of the layout was built using a generic div tag. Sure, the code worked visually, but machines and search engines couldn't understand the structure at all. Modern HTML5 completely fixed this by introducing semantic tags. Now, a header tag proudly announces its identity. A nav tag clearly flags our navigation links for Google. A main tag highlights the core content, and a footer handles the bottom of the page. You really need to stop building websites out of meaningless div tags. Use these semantic tags to massively boost your SEO and accessibility, and save the divs strictly for when you need a generic, meaningless box just for visual CSS styling. You can add even deeper semantic meaning to your content with some very specific tags, ensuring both humans and machines understand the exact context of your data. For example, use figure and fig caption to permanently bind an image tightly to its caption. Wrap dates and times in the time tag, complete with a date-time attribute so calendar apps can instantly read them. Need to quote someone? Use block quote for long block-level quotes or the Q tag for short inline quotes, which actually auto-adds quotation marks for you. And use the address tag specifically to provide the contact information of the document's author. Doing this is how you write code that is not just functional, but genuinely smart. Embedding rich media is virtually effortless in HTML5. Gone are the dark ages of relying on clunky third-party plugins. Now, you can natively play media using the video and audio tags. Just remember to include the controls attribute so your user actually has buttons to press play and pause. Because different browsers prefer different file formats, it's a best practice to use multiple source tags inside your media element to provide options like MP4 and WebM, or MP3 and OGG. Always throw in some fallback text inside those tags for folks on ancient browsers too. And if you want to embed a whole external page, like a YouTube video or an interactive Google map, the iframe tag with a source attribute is your best friend. Oh, and before we finish, there's one small but crucial trick you need to know about HTML entities. Since the browser uses less than and greater than brackets to read your code, what happens if you actually want to display those brackets as text on the screen without the browser trying to execute them? Well, you use special entity codes. For example, you type an ampersand, the letters LT, and a semicolon to show the less than symbol. It's a tiny detail, but absolutely vital if you ever want to write technical documentation or display code online. Well, we've covered the basic structure, text formatting, media, tables, interactive forms, and all those modern semantic standards. You now possess the complete blueprint to construct the skeleton of literally any website on the internet. The power is completely in your hands now. So the only question remaining is, what are you going to build first?